Well, this ought to be interesting. Also, 100 subscribers would be pretty cool. And before we get into this video, there are spoilers for the Amazing Digital Circus. So you've been warned. Something I've noticed a lot lately is how people will overthink a story so much that they end up hating the creator when the story doesn't match the ending they imagined. It happens way more than you think, and honestly, it's kind of sad to watch. The Amazing Digital Circus is a great example of this. It's a show with a fairly straightforward story underneath all the mystery. Sure, there are plenty of little details to speculate about, but the overall direction always felt pretty clear to me. And that's not a criticism of gooseworx. The predictable doesn't automatically mean bad. Sometimes a story isn't trying to shock you, it's just trying to tell a good story. The problem starts when people get so attached to their own theories that they stop paying attention to the story that's actually being told. Instead of enjoying each episode, they're constantly trying to outsmart the writer, looking for some massive twist around every corner. Then, when that twist never comes, they convince themselves that the ending is terrible because it wasn't their ending. And I'll admit, I've been guilty of this before. One of my favorite books of all time is Inkheart. And when it came out that it had a movie adaptation, I also found out people absolutely hated it. I figured, whatever, come on, it can't be that bad. But I couldn't even make it through the trailer. The movie looked so different from the book that I immediately checked out. But here's the difference. I didn't start sending hate to the people who made it. I don't like the movie. I don't think it captures what made the book special. But I can also admit that making a movie is a lot harder than sitting behind a screen complaining about one. I'm not about to message the movie creator saying, "Oh, I hope your family dies. Never make another movie again." That's not criticism. That's just being an awful person. And unfortunately, that's where some fandoms end up. There are critics, don't get me wrong, and then there are people who spend months building up headcanons, convincing themselves they're guaranteed to happen, and then getting genuinely angry when the creator tells a different story. And that's not the creator's fault. That's yours. Now, going back to the Amazing Digital Circus. Personally, I felt like the show was always building towards a straightforward, bittersweet ending. A lot of the clues seem to point into that direction, and while people came up with hundreds of theories, I never really expected some giant last-minute twist that changed everything, although it wasn't out of the assumption. But a lot of people did. They became so invested in their own versions of the story that they weren't really watching the actual story anymore. And then the finale came out. Their theories weren't right, and suddenly the show was ruined. I've been there myself. There have been plenty of times where I wanted a story to go in a certain direction only for it to do something completely different. And sometimes I hated it at first. Then I'd come back a few weeks later, maybe just a couple of days, maybe just a few hours, watch it again, and realize, okay, that actually worked way better than what I had in mind. That's why I don't judge a story solely by its ending. Sure, maybe the finale isn't my favorite episode, maybe it could have been stronger, but I'm not going to let 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour erase the hours of enjoyment I had getting there. A story isn't just its ending, it's the journey. If a show made you laugh, if a show got you theorizing, kept you excited, for every new episode and gave you the characters that you genuinely cared about, I'd say it already succeeded. The ending is just one piece of that. So if you take away anything from this video, let it be this. Make theories. That's half of the fun of being in a fandom. That's half of the fun of being a theorist. But don't treat your theories like promises. Because when you do, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed by a story that was never trying to tell your version in the first place. And to gooseworx, keep cooking. I'm loving the concepts of your new show. But hey, stay focused, keep reading, and thank you for watching.